Caitlin Clark has added pressure to the March 10th date for the WNBA CB talks and added pressure to the WNBPA to get a deal.
In the hyper-aggressive, multi-billion-dollar world of corporate labor negotiations, there is a fundamental psychological difference between a standard deadline and a weaponized financial ultimatum. For months, the mainstream sports media has treated the WNBA collective bargaining agreement standoff as a simple disagreement over revenue-sharing percentages. We were told that the players' union was patiently holding the line, waiting for the billionaire ownership groups to eventually cave to the intense public pressure generated by the massive WNBA phenomenon surrounding Caitlin Clark. We were told that the owners desperately needed the revenue from the 2026 season and, therefore, that the players fundamentally held all the leverage, but behind closed doors, in executive boardrooms where financial spreadsheets are meticulously analyzed, ownership groups have initiated a deeply ruthless, highly calculated strategy designed to fracture the solidarity of the players' union. The WNBA is no longer gently negotiating with its workforce. It is executing a psychological siege. A corporate weapon has been deployed, crafted specifically to turn players against their own executive committee. And the unprecedented spotlight on Caitlin Clark is being used not as a shield for the athletes, but as a ticking time bomb meant to force surrender. Welcome to the breakdown. Let us expose the unvarnished reality of the exploding offer strategy, the logistical nightmare of the upcoming season, and the brutal art of corporate execution. To truly understand the panic gripping the Players Association, you must examine the precise mathematical timeline ownership has placed on the negotiating table. Sports media outlets continue to focus on the May 8th season opener, assuming both sides have until late April to resolve their differences. But that date is an illusion. The logistics of professional sports are far more complex and far more daunting for an unemployed workforce. Consider the stark reality the league's front office has delivered to the union regarding the true, immovable deadline to salvage the season.
A stark ultimatum to the players' union. A deal must be reached by March 10th if the season is to start on time, according to
March 10th. That is the drop-dead date, and the owners are not invoking it arbitrarily to intimidate the union. It represents the final mathematical threshold at which operating a professional basketball league becomes logistically impossible. Consider the staggering reality of the WNBA's current infrastructure. More than 80% of its players are unrestricted free agents. The league, in practical terms, is nearly empty. Two brand new, multi-million-dollar expansion franchises in Toronto and Portland have paid astronomical entry fees, yet they do not have a single player on their rosters. Between March 10th and May 8th, a window of less than 60 days, the league must conduct an expansion draft, navigate a sweeping free agency period requiring dozens of players to relocate across the country, hold a collegiate draft, open training camps, and stage a full preseason schedule. None of that can happen without a legally binding collective bargaining agreement. You cannot sign free agents without knowing the salary cap. You cannot trade draft picks without clarity on core designation rules. The WNBA is effectively paralyzed. Ownership's message to the players is blunt. If we do not sign a deal by March 10th, we cannot physically assemble rosters in time to play. The season will be delayed. Arena dates will be lost to concerts, and paychecks will evaporate. But establishing a hard deadline is only the opening move in a ruthless corporate negotiation. The next step, the one designed to fracture a labor union's resolve, is a highly aggressive financial tactic known as the exploding offer. Owners understand that if a financial proposal sits on the table indefinitely, the union feels no urgency to accept it. If a 15% revenue-sharing offer remains available in April, players can afford to wait, hoping ownership grows desperate. To shatter that sense of security, immediate and compounding financial pressure must be introduced. As former Major League Baseball executive David Samson, a veteran of decades-long labor battles and multi-billion-dollar contract disputes, has explained, this is where psychological warfare becomes explicit and strategic.
Increases, but no revenue sharing movement. If you do not accept this deal by that day, every day following.
A single day after our offer, the deal gets worse. That is the pure definition of an exploding offer, and it may be the most intimidating financial weapon a billionaire can deploy against an athlete who depends on a bi-weekly paycheck to survive. What's being described is a masterclass in asymmetrical financial pressure. Ownership's message to the union leadership would be direct. We are offering a specific salary cap and defined housing benefits today. If you do not sign by midnight on March 10th, the terms deteriorate. On March 11th, the salary cap drops by $100,000. On March 12th, housing concessions disappear. On March 13th, minimum salary requirements are reduced. Once an exploding offer enters a labor dispute, the psychological dynamics inside the locker room shift entirely. The players are no longer battling ownership. They are racing the clock. Superstars with major endorsement deals from companies like Nike and Gatorade can afford patience. But role players, bench contributors, and athletes who rely almost exclusively on their WNBA minimum salaries to cover rent and daily expenses cannot withstand incremental financial losses day after day. The exploding offer is mathematically engineered to spark internal division. Bench players begin pressuring union leadership to accept the deal before it deteriorates further. Solidarity weakens. Fractures form. And ownership can prevail without formally winning. At the table, AS former Major League Baseball executive David Samson has argued, this kind of escalating pressure, what he openly characterizes as active punishment, is often deployed to force negotiations to a definitive conclusion.
I love that strategy. I used it with players all the time. You don't want to agree right now? Your next offer is lower.
On mutual respect and shared growth. But from a hardline corporate perspective, a league can be viewed as a commercial asset and players as replaceable contractors affecting profit margins. Ownership understands that the broader sports world is eagerly anticipating Caitlin Clark's sophomore season. Many assume that the unprecedented spotlight surrounding Clark would act as a protective shield for the players' union, that ownership would never risk disrupting a season centered on one of the sport's most marketable stars. In effect, critics argue the players dared ownership to shoot the golden goose. Instead, the strategy appears reversed. The spotlight becomes leverage. By setting a firm March 10th deadline, ownership's message is blunt. We are prepared to cancel a season featuring Caitlin Clark. Are you prepared to be blamed for it? If negotiations stall over revenue percentages, ownership claims are unsustainable, the public relations burden could shift toward the players. Fans, sponsors, and media outlets may direct frustration at those perceived to be prolonging the standoff. At the same time, an exploding offer structure would apply financial pressure internally, yet corporate brinkmanship carries its own risks. In high-stakes negotiations, credibility is everything. If leadership draws a line in the sand, it must be prepared to enforce it. A threatened penalty that never materializes can permanently weaken bargaining power. Former Major League Baseball executive David Samson has repeatedly warned about the danger of a hollow ultimatum. Once the other side recognizes a bluff, future deadlines lose their force entirely.
Follow through. Because if your child, your partner, your parent, the people with whom you work, the people against whom you negotiate, the agents, if they all believe
you, if they believe you are not sincere when you give an ultimatum, you have lost them forever. This is why the March 10th deadline is the most critical date in the history of the WNBA. The owners have pushed all their chips to the center of the table. They have told the players' union that they will not agree to the massive revenue-sharing demands. They will not absorb $460 million in projected losses, and they will not negotiate past the logistical deadline required to start the season. The owners have essentially parked a tank on the front lawn of the players' union headquarters and handed them a pen. The veteran players, who are aggressively demanding 27.5% of the gross revenue, are about to find out exactly how little leverage they actually possess when their paychecks evaporate and the arena doors are chained shut. The Caitlin Clark economy is the greatest financial miracle the league has ever experienced. But the owners are fully prepared to put it in a cryogenic freeze, rather than surrender their long-term corporate equity to a union that refuses to understand the basic mechanics of private enterprise. What is your completely unfiltered, highly analytical take on this massive corporate power play? Do you believe the WNBA owners are executing a brilliant strategy by using an exploding offer to break the union solidarity? Or are they being overly ruthless and risking the destruction of the Caitlin Clark era? And more importantly, do you think the veteran players will eventually cave and turn on their union leadership when the financial punishment begins on March 11th? Drop your completely unvarnished, brutal analysis in the comments section below. If you want the uncompromising truth about the real business, the real strategy, and the real cutthroat corporate politics of professional sports, hit that subscribe button, brutally smash the like button, and turn on the bell notification so you never miss a deep dive. We do not do mainstream media fluff on this channel. We expose the leverage, we follow the ultimate financial punishments, and we reveal the mathematical reality behind the press conferences. I will see you all in the next breakdown.